The underground bunker was cold and crowded. Representatives from 194 nations sat in chairs that were too small, staring at screens that showed their doom. Above them, 57 alien vessels circled the Earth like vultures, waiting for something to die. General Dohan stood at the front of the room. He was not a man who gave speeches. He was a man who gave orders. But today, he needed to do both. "We have 48 hours before they begin landing troops," he said. His voice filled the bunker like thunder. "Their fleet has already destroyed 3 satellites that came too close. Their weapons can reach any point on Earth within seconds. Their shields can stop any missile we have." A murmur went through the crowd. Fear was a living thing in that room, crawling from person to person. But, Dowan continued, "They have made a mistake. They think they know us. They think we are like other species they have conquered. They think we will break." He pressed a button, and the screen behind him changed. It showed a young woman with tired eyes and messy hair. Dr. Yunji, the physicist who had been working with Taiho for the past 3 days without sleep. "Dr. Yunji will explain what we are planning," Dawan said. "Listen carefully. Our survival depends on understanding this." Yunji stepped forward. She was only 31 years old, young enough to be the daughter of most people in the room. But when she spoke, her voice was steady and confident. The alien shields work by creating an electromagnetic barrier around their ships. Any object with an energy signature is detected and destroyed before it can get close. This is why our missiles and our jets and our satellites have all failed. She changed the image on the screen. It showed a diagram of particles that looked like tiny clouds of light. But we have discovered something they do not know about. Quantum entangled particles. These particles exist in a state of uncertainty. They are everywhere and nowhere at the same time. They have no energy signature because they do not technically exist in normal space. The representatives stared at the screen. Most of them did not understand quantum physics. But they understood the next thing Yunji said. "We can use these particles to bypass their shields completely. We can put objects inside their ships without them knowing until it is too late." A hand went up. It was the American Secretary of Defense, a woman named Williams. "What kind of objects? Bombs?" Yunji shook her head. "We do not have enough material for bombs. We have enough for 17 small devices. Each one is a transmitter. If we can get these transmitters inside their ships, we can access their computer systems." "And do what?" Williams asked. Now it was Taiho who stepped forward. He had finally slept for a few hours, but he still looked exhausted. Their ships all run on the same system. One central network controls everything. Navigation, weapons, shields, life support. If we can get into that network, we can give them new orders. Orders to do what? Taiho smiled. It was the smile of a man who had been thinking about this question for a very long time. Orders to destroy themselves. The room erupted into noise. Some people were shouting questions. Some were arguing with each other. Some were simply staring in disbelief. But underneath all the noise, there was something else. Hope. Admiral Suni waited until the room was quiet again before she spoke. She was the commander of the Korean Navy, a woman who had spent 30 years on ships and submarines. She understood patience and timing better than anyone. "There is a problem," she said. "The quantum devices need a distraction. The aliens need to be focused on something else while the particles travel to their ships. If they are watching carefully, they might detect something wrong." "What kind of distraction?" Dawan asked. Suni looked at the screen showing the alien fleet. "A big one. We need to launch an attack that looks real. Missiles, jets, everything we have. We need to make them think we are stupid and desperate. That attack will fail," someone said from the back of the room. "People will die. Yes, Suni said simply. People will die. But if we do nothing, everyone will die. This is the choice we have. The room fell silent again. This was the terrible math of war. Lives spent to save more lives. Sacrifices made so others could survive. Captain Hyunwoo understood this math better than most. He was a submarine commander, a man who had spent months at a time beneath the ocean, carrying weapons that could destroy cities. He had always hoped he would never have to use them. Now he had orders to use them in a way he had never imagined. All submarines will surface at the same time, he explained to his crew. We will launch our missiles at specific points in the upper atmosphere. Not at the alien ships. At the sky itself. His crew stared at him in confusion. They had trained for years to hit targets with precision. Now they were being asked to miss on purpose. The missiles will create electromagnetic pulses, Hyunwoo continued. Massive interference across all frequencies. For a few seconds, the aliens will not be able to see clearly. Their sensors will be blinded. And in those seconds, the quantum devices will arrive. It was a crazy plan. It required perfect timing. It required every submarine on Earth to work together. It required luck, but it was the only plan they had. The next 24 hours were spent preparing. In every country, soldiers loaded missiles and fueled jets. Pilots wrote letters to their families, knowing they might not come back. Engineers worked on the quantum transmitters, checking and rechecking every connection. Private Jisoo was one of the youngest soldiers in the Korean Army. She had enlisted only 3 days ago when the alien ships first appeared. She was 22 years old and had been studying to become a teacher before the world changed. Now she sat in a bunker beneath Bizen, holding a rifle she barely knew how to use, waiting for the end of the world. "Are you scared?" asked the soldier next to her. His name was Dong-woo, and he was only a year older than her. "Yes," Jisoo admitted. "Are you?" "Yes." Dong-woo looked at his own rifle. "But I am also angry. These things came to our planet. They called us prey. They think we will just lie down and die. Will we?" Dong-woo smiled. It was a fierce smile, full of determination. "No, Koreans do not lie down and die. Humans do not lie down and die. We fight. Even when we cannot win, we fight." Jisoo thought about his words. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived war and famine and hardship. She thought about her parents, who had worked their whole lives to give her a better future. She thought about all the humans who had ever lived, who had faced impossible odds and refused to give up. She gripped her rifle tighter. "Then we fight," she said. Above them, the alien fleet began to move. Landing craft separated from the main ships, carrying soldiers in powered armor and weapons that could level buildings. The harvest was beginning. But on Earth, millions of humans were preparing a surprise. In the command center, Yuna watched the screens with cold eyes. The first wave of attacks was about to launch. Thousands of missiles and hundreds of jets would fill the sky, creating chaos and destruction. Most of them would be destroyed within seconds. But in that chaos, 17 quantum devices would slip through. 17 tiny transmitters would appear inside 17 alien ships. And then everything would change. "Begin the operation," Yuna ordered. Across the planet, sirens began to wail. Jets roared off runways. Missiles burst from their silos. Submarines surfaced and pointed their weapons at the sky. The aliens saw the attack coming and prepared to swat it aside like an annoying insect. They had no idea that the real attack was invisible. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The Galactic Consortium had been harvesting planets for 10,000 years. They had a system that worked perfectly every time. When their scout ships found a new world with life, they studied it from far away. They watched the creatures. They measured the technology. They calculated how long the harvest would take. Earth appeared on their screens like a gift. The blue planet was small. The species living on it had no starships. They had no energy shields. They had no weapons that could reach beyond their own atmosphere. The consortium scouts spent 3 months watching from behind the moon. They saw humans fighting each other over land and money and ideas. They saw pollution rising from cities. They saw nuclear weapons pointed at each other instead of at the sky. The classification was simple. Earth was marked as prey. Commander Yuna was sleeping when her phone rang at 0347 hours. She was 52 years old and had served in the Korean United Defense Command for 30 years. She had seen many emergencies, but the voice on the other end of the phone made her blood turn cold. "Commander, we have contact. 57 vessels. They dropped out of hyperspace 12 minutes ago." Yuna was dressed and in her car within 4 minutes. The drive to the command center took 15 minutes, and she spent every second of it on the phone. By the time she walked through the security doors, she knew 3 things. The ships were real. They were not human. And they were coming. The command center was chaos. Officers ran between screens. Phones rang without stopping. On the main display, 57 red dots hung in space beyond the moon. They were moving slowly, like predators that knew their prey could not escape. "Show me their message," Yuna said. The communications officer played the transmission. It had arrived on every frequency at once, translated into every major language. The voice was calm and cold, like someone reading a shopping list. "Attention, inhabitants of the 3rd planet. Your world has been designated for harvest by the Galactic Consortium. You will submit your population for processing. Transportation vessels will arrive in 72 hours. Resistance will increase suffering but will not change the outcome. This message will not repeat." The room went silent. Yuna stared at the screen for a long moment. Around her, she could see fear on every face. Some officers were crying. One young man was praying quietly at his station. Yuna thought of her grandmother. She had been a child during the occupation, when foreign soldiers had marched through Korean streets and told her people they were nothing. Her grandmother had survived by being clever and patient and refusing to break. She had passed those lessons to her daughter, who passed them to Yuna. "We are not nothing," Yuna thought. "We have never been nothing. Get me every military commander on the planet," she said. Her voice was steady. "And find Dr. Taiho at the Quantum Research Facility. Tell him to drop everything." The next 6 hours were the longest of Yuna's life. She spoke to generals and admirals from 40 countries. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Some wanted to launch every nuclear weapon at once. Some simply stared at their screens in shock, unable to speak. But slowly, a plan began to form. Dr. Taiho arrived at the command center, looking like he had not slept in days. He was a thin man with glasses and messy hair, and he usually spent his time thinking about particles that normal people could not see. But when Yuna explained the situation, his tired eyes suddenly became sharp. "Their ships use energy shields," he said, studying the data. "Electromagnetic barriers. Very advanced, but still following the same physics. Can we break through them?" Yuna asked. Taiho smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Maybe. I have been working on something. Quantum entangled particles. They exist everywhere and nowhere at the same time. In theory, they could pass through any shield because they do not technically exist in normal space until they arrive." "In theory?" "We have never tested it on anything larger than a laboratory container." Yuna looked at the red dots on the screen. 57 alien vessels, carrying weapons that could burn cities to ash. Humanity had 72 hours. "Then we test it now," she said. While Taiho rushed back to his laboratory, Yuna continued gathering the world's leaders. It was strange how fast old enemies became friends when faced with extinction. Russia and America shared intelligence within hours. China and Japan coordinated their naval forces. Even countries that had been at war for decades suddenly found common ground. General Dohuan arrived from the army headquarters with a plan that was either brilliant or insane. He was 64 years old, with a face like carved stone and eyes that had seen too much death. He had spent his entire career preparing for wars against other humans. Now he was preparing for something much bigger. "We cannot match their firepower," he said, spreading maps across the table. "We cannot match their shields. We cannot match their technology. But we can match their expectations." "What do you mean?" Yuna asked. Dohuan pointed at the alien ships on the screen. "They think we are primitives. They think we will panic and scatter. They think we will make it easy for them." He smiled grimly. "So we show them exactly what they expect to see. We panic. We scatter. We launch hopeless attacks that fail. And while they are laughing at our weakness, we hit them with something they never expected." It was a simple plan. Simple plans were often the best. The world spent the next 3 days pretending to fall apart. News broadcasts showed riots and chaos. Military communications leaked information about failed defense systems and broken command structures. Leaders gave speeches full of fear and confusion. But underneath the surface, something else was happening. In 100 hidden laboratories, scientists worked without sleep to turn Taiho's theory into reality. In 1,000 military bases, soldiers practiced with weapons they had never used before. In 10,000 cities, civilians prepared to disappear underground at a moment's notice. Yuna stood at the window of the command center and watched the sun rise on the third day. The alien fleet had entered orbit during the night. They hung in the sky like metal mountains, blocking out the stars. Her phone buzzed. It was Taiho. "It works," he said. His voice was shaking. "The quantum projectiles work. We tested them on a satellite. The particles passed through the shielding like it was not there." Yuna felt something she had not felt in 3 days. Hope. "How many can you make?" 17. "We have materials for 17. 57 alien ships. 17 projectiles." It was not enough to destroy the fleet, but it might be enough to surprise them. "Make them count," Yuna said. She ended the call and turned to face her staff. These men and women had worked without sleep for 3 days. They had watched their world be marked for death. They had every reason to give up. None of them had given up. "The fleet is in position," Yuna announced. "They will begin landing operations within hours. They expect us to surrender. They expect us to die quietly." She paused, looking at each face in turn. "They are wrong." Outside the window, the alien ships began their descent. They moved slowly, confidently, like hunters approaching trapped prey. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The galaxy had marked Earth as prey. But prey does not coordinate across continents. Prey does not hide weapons in quantum physics. Prey does not smile while pretending to be afraid. Earth was not prey. Earth was a trap. And the trap was about to close. Overlord Tarek had conquered 47 worlds in his long career. He had seen species with great technology fall within days. He had watched civilizations crumble and beg for mercy. He had never lost a harvest. Earth would be his 48th victory. He stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the primitive attack unfold on his screens. Thousands of metal tubes were rising from the planet's surface, trailing fire and smoke. Hundreds of small flying machines were climbing toward his fleet. It was almost sad how predictable these creatures were. "Activate defensive systems," he ordered calmly. The fleet's weapons came alive. Beams of energy swept across the sky, turning missiles into fireballs. Point defense cannons tracked and destroyed the primitive aircraft before they could get within 1,000 kilometers. The attack lasted less than 2 minutes. "Damage report," Tarek demanded. "None, Overlord. All projectiles were eliminated. Enemy losses are total." Tarek allowed himself a small smile. This was always his favorite part. The moment when the prey realized they could not win. The moment when hope died. "Continue landing operations," he said. "Begin with the major population centers. I want processing facilities operational within 1 rotation." He turned away from the screens, already thinking about his next conquest. Earth was boring. These humans had not even put up a real fight. He did not notice the 17 small anomalies that appeared on his sensors for exactly 0.003 seconds before disappearing. Deep inside his ship, in a maintenance corridor that no one ever visited, a small metal cylinder materialized out of nothing. It was no larger than a human finger. It made no sound. It gave off no heat. And it began to transmit. In the command center on Earth, Dr. Yunji screamed with joy. Her screens lit up with data streaming from the alien ship. Navigation systems, weapon controls, shield generators, life support. Everything was there, flowing into her computers like water through an open door. "We are in," she shouted. "The transmitters are working. We have access to their network." Yuna grabbed her shoulder. "How many ships?" Yunji counted quickly. 17 transmitters, 17 ships connected to the main network. And through the network, she trailed off, her eyes going wide. "What? What is it?" "The network connects all of them. Every ship in the fleet shares the same system. If we can control 17, we can control all 57. Yuna felt her heart pounding. This was more than they had hoped for. This was a miracle. "Do it," she ordered. "Give them new orders. Make them destroy each other." Yunji's fingers flew across her keyboard. Lines of code filled her screen. She was not just sending commands. She was rewriting the alien fleet's entire operating system. On the command deck of the flagship, Tarek was reviewing landing reports when the first alarm sounded. "What is that?" he demanded. His tactical officer looked confused. "I do not know, Overlord. The system is acting strange." "Strange how?" Before the officer could answer, the lights on the deck flickered. Screens went dark and then came back with different information. The navigation system showed them flying into the sun. The weapon system showed targets that did not exist. "We are under attack," Tarek realized. "Someone is in our computers." He rushed to the command console and tried to enter override codes. Nothing worked. The system did not recognize him anymore. It was taking orders from someone else. "All ships," he shouted into the communication system. "Disconnect from the central network. Isolate your systems." But it was too late. Across the fleet, alien ships began to turn on each other. Weapons that had been pointed at Earth now pointed at sister ships. Shields that had been keeping humans out now kept the aliens trapped inside. The first explosion lit up the night sky like a new star. Private Jisoo was still in her bunker when she heard the cheering above ground. She climbed up the ladder and pushed open the hatch, expecting to see alien soldiers pouring through the streets. Instead, she saw fire falling from the sky. The alien ships were burning. They crashed into each other, spiraled out of control, and fell toward Earth like dying meteors. Some exploded before they hit the ground. Others smashed into mountains and oceans and empty fields. "What is happening?" she whispered. Donghu climbed up beside her and stared at the sky with his mouth open. "We are winning," he said. "I do not know how, but we are winning." On the flagship, Overlord Tarek fought to regain control. Smoke filled the command deck. Bodies lay on the floor. His ship was dying around him, systems failing one by one. He finally managed to reach an emergency console that was not connected to the main network. With shaking fingers, he typed a message to his remaining forces. Abandon the fleet. All ground troops proceed with harvest manually. Retreat to secondary positions. It was the first time in his career that he had ever ordered a retreat. Only 17 ships managed to escape the chaos. They limped away from Earth, damaged and burning, carrying the survivors of what should have been an easy victory. But Tarek knew something that the humans did not know. 40,000 ground troops had already landed before the attack began. They were spread across 6 continents, armed with weapons that could level cities. The fleet might be destroyed, but the harvest could still continue. He sent one more message before his ship's communication system died completely. This one was to his ground commanders. The fleet has been compromised. You are on your own. Complete the mission at all costs. Admiral Suni received the intercepted message in her command room on the destroyer. She read it twice, then looked at the tactical map showing alien troop positions across the globe. They landed 40,000 soldiers, she said quietly. The fleet is mostly destroyed, but the ground war is just beginning. Yuna's voice came through the communication system. What do we do now? Suni studied the map. The alien forces were scattered, but they were still dangerous. They had weapons that could kill from a distance. They had armor that could stop bullets. They had training and experience from conquering dozens of worlds. But they also had a problem. They were alone on a hostile planet, surrounded by 8 billion angry humans. Now we hunt them, Suni said. Every soldier, every war machine, every piece of alien equipment. We find them and we destroy them. We show them that Earth is not a place where predators come to feed. Earth is a place where predators come to die. The message went out to every military unit on the planet. The battle in space was over. The battle on the ground was about to begin. In a field outside Seoul, an alien landing craft sat smoking in a crater. 50 armored soldiers emerged and began to form a defensive perimeter. Their sensors showed no human military forces within 10 kilometers. What their sensors did not show was the 3,000 civilians who lived in the nearby town. Men and women who had been farmers and shopkeepers and teachers 3 days ago. Men and women who had spent those 3 days learning how to make explosives from household chemicals. The aliens never saw them coming. The first bomb took out 4 soldiers before they could raise their shields. The second destroyed their communication equipment. The third collapsed the landing craft on top of their supplies. By the time the surviving aliens understood what was happening, they were surrounded by humans carrying stolen weapons and homemade bombs and simple farming tools. The humans showed no mercy. Across the world, the same scene repeated itself. Alien soldiers who expected terrified prey found themselves facing enemies who fought with desperate fury. Every building was a fortress. Every shadow hid a threat. Every human was a soldier. The harvest had become a nightmare, and the nightmare was just beginning. The alien soldier was dying. His armor was cracked. His weapon was empty. His communication device had stopped working 3 days ago. He crawled through the ruins of what humans called Chicago, leaving a trail of purple blood behind him. He had started this mission with a squad of 40 soldiers. Now he was alone. The humans hunted his squad like animals. They attacked at night when sensors worked poorly. They used explosives hidden in buildings and roads. They wore stolen armor and carried stolen weapons. They showed no fear and asked for no mercy. He had conquered 12 worlds. He had never seen anything like this. A sound made him turn his head. A human child was standing at the end of the ruined street, watching him with cold eyes. The child could not have been more than 10 years old. She held a radio in her small hands. The alien tried to raise his weapon, but his arms would not obey. He tried to call for help, but no sound came from his throat. The child spoke into the radio. "Found one. Corner of State and Madison. He's almost dead." The alien heard footsteps approaching from all directions. Humans emerged from doorways and windows and holes in the ground. Some wore military uniforms. Some wore civilian clothes. All of them carried weapons. He closed his eyes and waited for the end. This was how the harvest was supposed to work for the prey, not for the hunters. Sergeant Minsu led his squad through the sewers beneath Incheon. They had been fighting for 2 weeks straight, sleeping in 2-hour shifts, eating whatever they could find. His uniform was torn and dirty. His rifle was scratched and dented. But he was still alive. That was more than he could say for the aliens who had landed in his city. "Report," he whispered into his communication device. "Sector 7 is clear," came the reply. "We found 12 hostiles in an abandoned factory. All eliminated. Sector 12 is clear. 8 hostiles terminated near the port. Sector 3 needs support. They have a heavy weapon unit pinned down." Minsu checked his map. Sector 3 was a shopping district. The aliens had set up a defensive position in a department store, using their powerful guns to keep humans away. 3 attack teams had tried to break through. All 3 had failed. "I am on my way," Minsu said. "Keep them busy." He led his squad through the tunnels, moving fast and quiet. They emerged in a basement 2 blocks from the department store. Through a crack in the wall, Minsu could see the alien position. 10 soldiers in heavy armor, with 2 mounted weapons that could cut through buildings like paper. A normal attack would fail, but Minsu was not planning a normal attack. "Dr. Taiho," he said into his device. "I need a jammer." The physicist's voice came back immediately. Taiho had not returned to his laboratory since the war began. He traveled with the frontline troops, carrying a bag full of devices he had built from stolen alien technology. "I am 3 blocks away," Taiho said. "What frequency?" Minsu told him. 3 minutes later, a high-pitched whine filled the air. It was a sound that humans could barely hear. But for the aliens, it was much worse. Their armor went dead. The strength-enhancing systems that let them lift heavy weights suddenly stopped working. The powered joints that let them move quickly locked up. The helmets that showed them tactical information went dark. 10 alien soldiers suddenly found themselves trapped in metal coffins. Minsu's squad moved in fast. They did not waste bullets on the armored bodies. They aimed for the joints, the neck seams, the helmet connections. Places where the armor was weak. Places where blades could reach flesh. It was over in 30 seconds. "Sector 3 is clear," Minsu reported. Across the world, the same story repeated itself 1,000 times. Humans learned the aliens' weaknesses and exploited them without mercy. They set traps. They staged ambushes. They fought in ways the aliens had never seen before. Mayor Kyun-hee of Daejeon had saved 3 million lives by moving them underground. Now those 3 million people were fighting back. The subway tunnels had become a fortress. The maintenance corridors had become highways for resistance fighters. Every station was a base camp. "We have captured 20 more," reported one of her lieutenants. They were trying to access the water treatment plant. "Alive?" Kyung-hee asked. "Most of them." Kyung-hee nodded. Living prisoners were valuable. They could be questioned. They could reveal information about alien technology and tactics. And they could be shown to the world as proof that the invaders could be beaten. Put them with the others. Make sure they are fed and given medical care. The lieutenant looked surprised. "Medical care? For the creatures trying to kill us? We are not like them." Kyung-hee said firmly. We do not torture. We do not abuse prisoners. We fight to protect our home, not to become monsters. It was a lesson that many humans struggled to remember. The aliens had come to harvest them like animals. The desire for revenge was strong. But leaders like Kyung-hee insisted that humanity had to remain human, even in the darkest times. Not everyone agreed. Overlord Tarek had survived the destruction of his fleet by escaping in a small shuttle. He had crashed in the mountains outside what humans called Denver. For 2 weeks, he had hidden in caves, eating emergency rations and waiting for rescue. No rescue came. The consortium had received his distress call, but their response had not been reinforcements. It had been a single message, cold and final. Earth reclassified. Status: quarantine. No further resources will be allocated. They had abandoned him. They had abandoned all of them. Tarek understood the logic. Earth was no longer worth the cost. The humans had proven too dangerous, too unpredictable, too willing to die rather than submit. The consortium would simply avoid this planet from now on. But that understanding did not help Tarek. He was stranded on a hostile world, hunted by creatures who should have been prey. He heard sounds outside his cave, footsteps, voices, the clicking of weapons being readied. Tarek grabbed his sidearm and pressed himself against the wall. His armor was damaged beyond repair. His shields were gone. He had 3 power cells left for his weapon. The first human appeared at the cave entrance. Tarek fired. The human fell. The second human appeared. Tarek fired again. Missed. Then they came all at once. 5, 10, 20 humans pouring into the cave with flashlights and rifles and screaming voices. Tarek killed 2 more before they overwhelmed him. They knocked the weapon from his hand. They pinned him to the ground. They bound his arms and legs with metal chains. A woman pushed through the crowd. She wore a military uniform with many decorations. Her face was calm and cold. Overlord Tarek, she said in perfect consortium standard. You are now a prisoner of the United Earth Defense Force. Tarek stared at her. How do you know my language? We have had 2 weeks to study your surviving soldiers. We are fast learners. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You came to harvest us. You called us primitives. You thought we would be easy. We were wrong, Tarek admitted. Yes, you were. The woman leaned closer. Now you will help us. You will tell us everything about your consortium, your technology, your weaknesses, your other enemies. And if I refuse, then you will sit in a cell for the rest of your life while we figure it out ourselves. It will take longer, but we will manage. We always do. Tarek thought about his options. He had none. The consortium had abandoned him. His soldiers were dead or captured. His fleet was debris orbiting the planet. What do you want to know? He asked. The woman smiled again. This time, it reached her eyes. Everything. 3 weeks later, the last alien soldier on Earth was killed in a firefight outside Sydney. The war was over. Humanity had won. But everyone knew this was only the beginning. The consortium was vast. Other species might try what the first had failed to do. Earth needed to be ready. The hunt was over. The preparation for the next hunt was about to begin. 1 year had passed since the invasion. The scars were still visible everywhere. Cities that had been battlefields were slowly being rebuilt. Memorials stood in places where thousands had died. Children grew up with stories of the war that would be told for generations. But Earth had not spent the year only mourning. Earth had spent the year preparing. President Nari stood before the United Nations General Assembly. But this was not the old United Nations, with its arguments and divisions and endless debates. This was something new. A true global government born from the ashes of invasion. 194 nations speaking with one voice for the first time in human history. 1 year ago, Nari began, we received a message from the stars. They told us we were prey. They told us resistance was useless. They told us to submit. The assembly hall was silent. Every seat was filled. Cameras broadcast her words to every corner of the planet. We did not submit. We fought. We bled. We lost millions of our brothers and sisters. She paused, her voice catching. But we survived. Not because we were stronger than them. Not because we were smarter than them. We survived because we refused to accept their verdict. She pressed a button on her podium. Behind her, massive screens lit up with images. The first image showed shipyards in orbit around Earth. Dozens of vessels were under construction, built with a combination of human engineering and stolen alien technology. They were not pretty ships. They were not elegant ships. But they were powerful ships, designed for one purpose: war. Our first fleet will be operational within 6 months, Nari said. 50 vessels, each one equipped with shields and weapons equal to or better than what the consortium sent against us. The second image showed a network of satellites and defense platforms surrounding Earth. Thousands of weapons pointed outward at the stars, ready to fire at anything that approached without permission. Our planetary defense grid is already active. No ship can enter our solar system without being detected. No attack can reach our surface without being challenged. The third image showed soldiers training with powered armor and energy weapons. Human soldiers, wearing suits that have been copied from the aliens and improved by human engineers. Our ground forces are equipped with technology that matches anything the consortium has. Our soldiers are trained to fight in any environment, against any enemy. Nari turned to face the cameras directly. She was speaking now to more than just the assembly. She was speaking to the entire world. And she was speaking to whatever ears might be listening in the darkness between stars. To the Galactic Consortium and any other civilization monitoring this broadcast, we have a message for you. She straightened her shoulders. Her voice grew stronger. Earth is not prey. We never were. We are a species that has faced extinction many times and survived every time. We have fought ice ages and plagues and wars. We have crawled out of caves and reached for the stars. We do not surrender. We do not submit. We do not die quietly. In the audience, General Dohan listened with tears running down his weathered face. He had spent 40 years preparing for wars that never came. Then, when the real war arrived, he had led humanity to victory against impossible odds. Now he was ready to retire. A new generation of warriors would take his place. Beside him, Admiral Suni nodded slowly. She had lost her ship during the final battle, sinking with half her crew when an alien strike hit them from orbit. She had spent 3 hours in the freezing water before rescue came. She had never stopped fighting. Dr. Yunji sat in the front row, her fingers twitching as if she were still typing code. She had saved the world with a piece of software and 17 tiny transmitters. Now she led the new Earth Defense Science Division, with 1,000 scientists working to unlock the secrets of alien technology. Dr. Taiho sat beside her, looking uncomfortable in his formal clothes. He preferred his laboratory to political events. But Nari had insisted that the heroes of the war be present for this moment. So he sat and listened and thought about the next generation of quantum weapons he was designing. Captain Hyunwoo was no longer a captain. He was now Admiral of the First Earth Fleet, commanding the vessels that were being built in orbit. He had spent the last year traveling between shipyards, inspecting construction, training crews, and preparing for a future that might bring more enemies to their door. Private Jisoo was no longer a private either. She had been promoted 3 times during the war, leading defense teams in some of the heaviest fighting in Bizon. Now she was Lieutenant Jisoo, training the next generation of soldiers who would protect Earth from whatever came next. Even Overlord Tarek was watching from a secure facility where he lived as a cooperative prisoner. He had provided invaluable information about the consortium, their weaknesses, their enemies, their technology. In exchange, he was treated well and allowed to communicate with his people. Some humans hated him, but the government understood that having a living source of information was more valuable than revenge. President Nari continued her speech. We do not want war. We never wanted war. We wanted to explore the stars in peace, to meet other species as friends, to learn and grow together. But you chose to see us as resources. You chose to mark us for harvest. You chose wrong. She leaned forward, her eyes burning with intensity. So here is our message to the galaxy. Come to Earth in peace, and you will find friends. Come to Earth with hostile intent, and you will find an enemy unlike any you have faced before. We will fight you on the ground and in space. We will fight you in our cities and in our forests. We will fight you with weapons you know and weapons you have never seen. We will never stop fighting until you leave our home or until every single one of us is dead. She paused to let her words sink in. And even then, our ghosts will haunt you. The assembly erupted in applause. People stood and cheered. Tears flowed and fists pumped in the air. Across the planet, billions of humans watched and felt something they had not felt in a long time: pride. They had been marked as prey. They had been told they were worthless primitives who would fall in days. They had been wrong about so many things: their divisions, their weaknesses, their petty conflicts. But they had not been wrong about one thing. They were human, and humans do not give up. In the secure facility, Overlord Tarek watched the broadcast with something close to respect. He had conquered 47 worlds. Before coming to Earth, he had seen great empires and advanced civilizations fall before his forces. None of them had been like these humans. None of them had looked at certain defeat and said, no. He wondered what the consortium would do when they received this broadcast. They had quarantined Earth, hoping to forget about their embarrassing defeat. But this message would not let them forget. This message was a challenge. And Tarek knew, deep in his hearts, that the humans meant every word. President Nari finished her speech with a simple statement. The galaxy marked Earth as prey. The galaxy was wrong. We are humanity. We fight. We survive. We win. And now, we are coming for the stars. The broadcast ended, but the message continued spreading outward at the speed of light. It would reach the nearest consortium outpost in 17 years. It would reach the center of the galaxy in 25,000 years. It would echo through the universe forever. A warning, a promise, a declaration. Earth was no longer prey. Earth was the planet that fought back, and the galaxy would never forget it. In the shipyards orbiting Earth, the first human starship completed its final tests. It was named Defiance. In 3 days, it would leave the solar system for the first time in human history. Its mission, exploration. Its purpose, to show the galaxy that humanity was not afraid. Admiral Humu stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, civilizations were receiving humanity's message. Some would hear a warning. Others would hear an opportunity. All of them would learn the truth. Humanity was not the prey. Humanity was the species that looked at impossible odds, at ancient empires, an overwhelming force, and simply refused to die. The galaxy had marked Earth for harvest. Earth had marked itself for survival. And survival was only the beginning.